Hey, how's it going? Today I'm talking about, is your injury all in your head?
This is Running to the Castle, a podcast for injury-prone RunDisney runners on a journey to running magical miles. Join me, Dr. Allie, as I share the secrets I've gathered as a runner, doctor of physical therapy, and coach. You'll learn the exact ways I get my clients to the castle strong without feeling broken or held together with KT tape as they cross the finish line.
This conversation got prompted by a Facebook question that came up, and it says something along the lines of, talking to my bestie, she's not a runner, I didn't run this morning, I have calf issues. I'm in PT, training for my third marathon and have run 5 half marathons since 2023. I'm 46 and not a runner. My bestie proceeded to tell me that my injury was just being caused by me being in my head, and it always happens when I'm training. Excuse me? Yes, it may always happen when you're training, but does that mean it's all in your head? I get frustrated with this for multiple reasons. I'm a physical therapist and I see people in pain all the time when they have normal findings otherwise. It happened to me. I fainted last year when I stood up too fast. Now, I've always had trouble when I stand up too fast. And growing up, I thought it was just the way things are, and that's why people get up slowly. Growing up in my house, the way it was situated, the family room where we watched TV had a couch against a wall, and I could sit in the end of the couch, get up and walk to the kitchen, and on the other side of that same wall that couch was against was the refrigerator. So we're talking like 5 steps. Get up, turn around, walk a handful of steps, and there's the fridge. I could get up from that seat, and I should also say the fridge was right next to a doorway. So the end of the couch butted up next to this doorway. I remember waking up, I remember a black curtain going over my eyes once I got to that doorway. Friend, I thought that was normal. It's not normal for anybody who experiences that, but I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to, freak anybody out or people think I was weird, whatever. Didn't say anything. Dealt with it for years. I started recognizing that if I didn't drink enough water, if I was dehydrated, that would happen more violently and more often. Then when I was in physical therapy school, I found out what that was. It's postural hypotension. Orthostatic postural hypotension. And that, yes, indeed, if you stand up slower, that won't happen. If you take more time going from a laying down to a sitting to a standing position, that won't happen. And if you're not dehydrated, if you're well hydrated, it won't happen. So that's how I managed it for years. And over the years, it has just gotten increasingly worse. And I fainted last year. And my internal medicine, my PCP, is also board certified in cardiology. So I called them, went to them. They took my blood pressure when I was laying down, sitting, and standing. They said my blood pressure was normal. They didn't look into it any further. I asked who else I should go to. They said nobody, just get up slower, drink regular water first thing when you wake up, 20 ounces, and then the rest of the day only have things like liquid IV or electrolyte drinks. And that was it. And I'm like, okay, well, this is a cardiologist. They're saying it's nothing, just do these things. Well, as the years have gone on, it seems like there might be something else going on. But I started thinking, well, is this all in my head? Am I getting worked up and making this worse? Friend, no, I am not. This is legitimately happening to me. And I found somebody, or I'm finding somebody to go look at, or I am finding somebody to look at me about this. But so I've personally experienced that kind of situation where not somebody telling me it's all in my head, but me wondering if it's all in my head. My husband goes through it with what he goes through, wondering, is this all in my head? Absolutely not. And I have said, I have witnessed these things. If it's all in your head, well, you've put it in my head too. It is not all in your head. And then in the physical therapy world, I have seen it where people have come into me. Let's say they had a broken ankle years ago, and they were coming to me saying that their ankle still hurt. And their doctors would say, that's impossible. There's nothing wrong with your ankle. It's not broken. You are fine. And that there was nothing wrong with it, so it shouldn't hurt, implying that this is all in your head. It's not all in their head. There is a series of mechanisms that happen after you've had an injury where the tissue around it becomes sensitized. That's one of the reasons why physical therapy is so important. Even if you can get motion back on your own, you can get some strength back on your own, there are things that you may not know to do, you probably don't know to do, that can desensitize your tissue and the surrounding area, so then this doesn't happen. And it happens just as a process of healing, and sometimes for some people it just goes out of whack. I am not sure why that happens. I do know that part of the reason could be that you don't do these desensitization techniques. And so then you have pain for years and years and years. There's a thing called complex regional pain syndrome, where something has happened like a broken ankle, and then the nerves in the area get sensitive. That follows the nerve back to its starting point. If it was in your leg, then the starting point is in the nerves in your spine, in your lower spine, and it can sensitize everything that nerve goes to, attaches to, sends signal to in your leg. So maybe you broke your ankle, but now your outer knee hurts for no apparent reason. There are things that happen. I see this kind of thing happen all the time after somebody's had a hip replacement. Hip replacement specifically because most surgeons don't send somebody with a hip replacement to physical therapy, because they say you can just keep walking and walking will be your physical therapy. Friend, if you or a loved one has a hip replacement, please go to physical therapy. At least a month, ideally 6 to 8 weeks of it. Yes, you don't need that much, quote unquote, that much physical therapy after a hip replacement, but you do need some. And one of the reasons that surgeons don't send people to physical therapy after hip replacement is because there's not a ton that looks like they need skilled physical therapy. And it used to be that surgeons would do the hip replacement a certain way and dislocations would happen. And physical therapy got a bad rap that physical therapy caused these hip dislocations. No, it was usually just that person specific. Maybe they were hypermobile. Maybe the socket wasn't big enough to get the ball joint in and it just wasn't placed well. There are a multitude of reasons, and the chances of physical therapy being strong enough on their own, the physical therapist being strong enough on their own to dislocate that hip is wild. They have to put so much force. If you've ever talked to a surgeon and ask how much force they need to put a hip back in place, they have to manipulate it. They have to force it. They need 2 people sometimes to get it to stay in place. Friend, do you think I look like somebody who could knock that hip replacement out of place? No. But what happens, I'm going on a tangent, but what happens is if they don't get physical therapy because the surgeon deems that they don't need it, what happens is they don't move their hip through all available ranges of motion, and certain things get tight and certain things get sensitized. The nerve stays sensitive because it hasn't been addressed, and the sensitization techniques have the desensitization techniques haven't happened. So then they get this long-standing pain and they think that the hip replacement didn't work. And then the surgeon says, well, the hip looks good. In a static x-ray, the hip looks good. So everything's fine, implying it's all in your head. No, friend, it's not all in your head. And these injuries, these running injuries, are not all in your head. Something is going on, and you just haven't talked to the right person to figure out what it is. It could be a broken bone. It could be a stress fracture that's not showing up on an x-ray, because spoiler alert, stress fractures don't show up on x-rays. They show up on MRIs. But the first line of defense is an x-ray, because other types of fractures show up on an x-ray, and x-rays are super cheap. Insurance pays for them. Insurance requires it before an MRI. And what happens is it's an x-ray. If it's a stress fracture, it's x-ray. It's negative. Insurance won't approve an MRI for 6 weeks. And usually you go to physical therapy for 6 weeks to fail it. I hate that phrase because people get in their mind that it's not going to work. Now, for a stress fracture, no, physical therapy is not going to take away the pain. It's not going to heal the stress fracture. It can take away the pain. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But MRI for a stress fracture. But if the physician's not that great, not well versed in these things, they'll do the x-ray and say, oh, it looks great, no problem. You can keep running, it's not broken. Well, a stress fracture doesn't show up that way. It shows up on an MRI. So something is going on. But if you keep having injuries when you're training, no, it's not all in your head, but it's also not right. You can train for your half marathon. You can train for your marathon, goofy, dopey. Heck, you can train for a 5K, a 10K, any distance. You do not have to suffer with injuries back to back to back to back. That's why I created the finisher framework. There are 6 categories to look at when it comes to why you're having training injuries, why you're getting injured every time you run. We look at your strength exercises, your training regimen, your stretching, your rest and recovery techniques, what shoes and equipment you're using and wearing. What is your fueling and hydration looking like? Not every single person will need to address every single category. And that's why Stronger, Faster Finisher is so good, in my humble opinion, because if you need to look more at your training, well, we look more at your training. If you need to look more at your fueling and hydration, well, we're right there too. But I'm giving recommendations to everybody, but we're going to really dial it in for each individual person, depending on which category, which pillar you need in that finisher framework for you. Most people think that they need more strength exercises to stop getting injured. More is more. Balanced is better. The majority of runners I see who are already strength training, their strength exercises are satisfactory. They're pretty good. They usually don't need a ton of changes there. And when they add more and more and more, if they didn't actually need to change that, they're not going to feel any different because they didn't change the thing that they actually need to change, which could be the training, which could be the rest and recovery. This person was posting on Facebook to get some support. They weren't looking for answers. They basically were just looking for, is this all in my head? And the answer is no, it's not all in your head. But you don't have to suffer with injuries. Your friend pointing out that you keep getting injured every time you train is valid. And looking back, they've done 5 half marathons since 2023. Friend, that's a lot of half marathons. And I don't know when they actually started running. If they started running in 2023 and doing 5 half marathons in 2 years, because at the time of recording this is mid-2025, that's a lot of running. That's like 3 a year. That's a lot of running. And if you're following the appropriate training plan, that should be taking you 16 weeks. And there are 52 weeks in a year. So 16 times 3, let's do that math. That's 48. That means you've taken 1 month off from training in the past 2 years, that's a lot of running. I would look at what the rest and recovery looks like for this person. And if they say, oh no, my training took less than that, well, that might even be more problematic because they might be getting up to a half marathon distance too soon and not giving it the full amount of time that somebody who has battled injuries needs. So in conclusion, is your injury all in your head? No. There's always something going on. You just haven't found the person to help dive into what actually is going on yet. Please take what you've learned in this episode and use it to adjust your strategy for your RunDisney race training. It's not about doing more. It's about doing the right things in the right balance so you can finish strong, not broken. And if you want personalized guidance specific to your race, your injury history, your running background, and your goals, that's exactly what we do inside Stronger, Faster, Finisher. You'll get step-by-step instructions and a proven system to help you train smarter from start to finish. Join the waitlist today to be the first to know when it opens next. That's all for now. Talk to you soon.